Hi, today's video is going to be about um, it's going to be about general writing skills, and I'm going to compare two articles from two different websites, and we're going to look at their paragraph structure to determine which one of them does writing better. The purpose of this video is basically to kind of, just to be able to identify the qualities of good writing that you should yourself strive to have. Um, that's really it. What we're looking for when you're trying to improve your own writing, you're trying to look for certain pitfalls when you review what you've written down, and you're trying to avoid those pitfalls. Um, I guess let's just compare. Let's just compare two articles, one from the Daily Beast and one from the New Yorker, to see which of them does writing better and what qualities are good writing. What qualities does good writing have versus what qualities does bad writing have? And I think the first thing that I'd like to focus on is purpose. So let's make this video like a three-parter, and let's look at which article uh, does purpose well and why or why not. So let's start with the bad one. I mean, I haven't read these yet. I just looked up a list of worst news media, best news media, so I'm already biased that this is going to be the bad one, this is going to be the good one, but let's have a look. Let's compare. Um, Tearing into his Republican critics on Wednesday, Dr. Anthony Fauci claimed that the withering criticism he's faced from the right is not only painfully ridiculous, but also very dangerous, insisting that it amounts to attacks on science. Um, so here's the question. What is the purpose of the writing? The purpose of this paragraph is to inform, but what else? What else might be the purpose here? He's tearing into critics, sort of neutral. He claims that's kind of a nice way to detract authority from somebody by using the word claim instead of says or asserts. That the withering criticism he's faced from the right is not only painfully ridiculous, but also very dangerous, insisting that it amounts to attacks on science. The way that this is phrased makes Fauci look like an idiot. So I would argue that the purpose of this article is to make Fauci look like a look like the purpose is to make him look like a defensive moron and a dangerous defensive moron. That's my prediction. And so let's continue to see if that prediction is verified. In recent weeks, a top infectious disease expert has become public enemy number one in conservative circles, largely thanks to the public release of a trove of his emails. Republicans have cited the emails to blast Fauci for supposedly misleading on mask wearing, claiming that they show he tried to cover up proof that COVID-19 leaked from a Wuhan lab. Um, this doesn't seem to paint him in a negative way, but it's kind of like they don't um, they don't detract from the conservatives. They don't say that the conservative. They don't try to they don't try to remove the authority of the conservative circles. Um, but it's just kind of almost presenting information neutrally. But let's move on. At the same time, journalists such as Fox News anchor Chris Wallace have pointed out that there's no smoking gun within the thousands of emails, warning that the attacks have become highly political and nothing more than a major talking point for Republicans. Um, so now this kind of detracts from my original theory here. This might not be an article trying to paint Fauci as a moron. Echoing those concerns while interviewing Fauci on Wednesday, MSNBC anchor Chuck Todd noted that the chief Biden medical advisor has become a caricature on the right and the subject of some really wild conspiracies. For instance, as Todd highlighted, Senator Marsha Blackburn recently accused Fauci of colluding with Facebook to push a cherry-picked narrative on COVID-19. Okay, so we're removing the authority of the conservatives. How do you debunk something like that? She's got it in her own head. Again, a United States Senator that represents the state of Tennessee. What do you say to that? Todd wondered aloud. So, my initial prediction was wrong. The purpose of this paper is to show Fauci in a normal light, to give him kind of like a normal look, and to make the conservatives that criticize him look like crazy people. So now we have to ask, if the purpose is to make the conservatives that criticize him look crazy, does the article do the purpose well? Let's continue. I don't have a clue what she's just said, an exasperated Fauci sighed. I don't have a clue what she's talking about. He continued, and I'm sorry, I don't want to be pejorative against a U.S. Senator, but I have no idea what she's talking about, and you know, Chuck, if you go through each and every one of the points, which are so ridiculous, just painfully ridiculous, you go through each and every one of them, you can explain and debunk it immediately. After attempting to fact-check some of the most common attacks, notably over his changing position and evolution of mask-wearing, Fauci then went on a bit of a tirade at all of his Republican detractors. It's quite dangerous, Chuck, because a lot of what you're seeing as attacks on me, quite frankly, are attacks on science, he exclaimed. Because all the things that I've spoken about consistently from the very beginning have been fundamentally based on science. Sometimes those things were inconvenient truths for people, and there was a pushback against me. Hard to tell. It's hard to tell what the article is going for. On one hand, it shows Fauci in this really elitist kind of framework where he's just saying that people that are attacking him are attacking science. On the other hand, it's trying to go and remove the authority of the conservatives that are criticizing him. So it's difficult to say which direction the article is leaning in. So if you're trying to get at me as a public health official and scientist, you're really attacking not only. So if you're trying to get at me as a public health official and scientist, you're really attacking not only Dr. Anthony Fauci, you're attacking science, the public health expert concluded. And anybody that looks at what is going on clearly sees that. You have to be asleep not to see that. Now we're back to trying to paint Fauci like an elitist asshole. And that's it. So what do we get? The purpose of the article's there. But what's the point? What's the point? Are we trying to show that Fauci's wrong or right? Not enough information. Are we trying to show that Fauci is an elitist? They've definitely got quite a bit of stuff here that's been taken out of context, which isn't to say that it's not what he meant, but it's taken from a source. He's quoted, and the way that he's quoted makes him sound like a real elitist. However, here's the original interview. I haven't clicked that, but I imagine that this, you know what? I can't imagine anything. So, I don't know. But they've got some stuff here that also talks about the conservatives who are criticizing him as being conspiracy theorists. And this sort of position is echoed from a couple of journalistic sources. So it's hard. It's hard to know what the purpose of this article is. Does it effectively make me think Fauci is an elitist? No, because I don't know what the original claim is. Does it make me think that the conservatives are crazy? No, because that we don't get in depth about what the conservatives are thinking. So in terms of purpose, you have to, has the article achieved its purpose? The purpose is unclear. The purpose is unclear, so I don't know if the article has achieved its purpose. It's very short, and in my mind, it's sort of wavy. Let's compare this to the New Yorker article. Ralph Nader, now 87 years old, has been a public figure for more than half a century. Many people know him as the long-shot left-wing Republican candidate in 4 successive elections, from 1996 to 2008, and is a possible spoiler of a Democratic victory in 2000, when he got almost 100,000 votes in Florida, and Al Gore lost the state by 537. Ralph Nader is not going to be welcome anywhere near the corridors. Joe Biden told the Times back then. Nader cost us the election. Okay. So we're talking about, how nobody likes Ralph Nader. Fair enough. Let's get into it. But his real heyday was in the 1960s and 70s. In 1966, he was a star witness at sensational hearings about automobile safety conducted by Senator Abraham Ribicoff of Connecticut. Nader, a young lawyer who had just published a book titled Unsafe at Any Speed: The Designed-In Dangers of the American Automobile, seemed to know everything about auto safety and to be motivated by pure moral passion. What helped elevate him from star witness to celebrity, though, was the fact that his principal target, General Motors, hired private investigators to dig up dirt on him. There wasn't any to be found, but Nader caught on and alerted first the Washington Post and then the New Republic. The idea of the country's paradigmatic giant business corporation going after a penniless, idealistic reformer was journalistically irresistible. So the point seems to be here to give a sort of biography of Ralph Nader. We start with who he was to the Democrats and what Joe Biden, said about him, and then we started his kind of beginnings as a lawyer. And then in the years following the Ribicoff hearings, Nader was able to make himself far more than an auto safety expert. He sued GM for spying on him and used the proceeds of the resulting settlement to start a series of organizations that investigated what government agencies did and failed to do. Nader's parents were immigrants from Lebanon who operated a restaurant in Winston, Connecticut, but he had Ivy League degrees, and in those days becoming a Nader's Raider, as staff members at his organizations were known, was a glittering credential, a blazer-wearing way of participating in the culture of the 60s and 70s. A Pete Buttigieg of that generation would have gone to work for Nader instead of McKinsey. Again, we're talking about his life. And the article is written in sort of an engaging way. Like, you're learning about who Ralph Nader was. You're getting, if the purpose of the article is probably not to inform you. It's hidden in there somewhere, but part of its purpose is kind of to really give you some interesting information about Ralph Nader, to bring this relatively old politician back into public life and give him a history and give him a narrative. And I think so far the article is succeeding in that. It's written in an engaging way, but the purpose is still unclear. In a 2002 biography of Nader that had the subject of cooperation, Justin Martin identifies 71 as Nader's zenith. That year, by his calculations, the Times published 148 stories about it. In the following year, Martin reports George McGovern offered Nader the Democratic vice presidential nomination, which he turned down. 4 years after that, Jimmy Carter, during his successful presidential campaign, met with Nader twice. Martin credits Nader with influencing around 25 pieces of federal legislation that were passed down between 1966 and 1973, when Lewis Powell Jr., soon to become a Supreme Court justice, wrote a memo to the Chamber of Commerce titled "Attack on American Free Enterprise System," which helped lead to a new network of conservative organizations. He made the source of his alarm clear. Perhaps the single most effective antagonist of American business is Ralph Nader, who, thanks largely to the media, has become a legend in his own time and an idol of millions of Americans. It's hard to think of anyone in American history who has achieved this kind of influence without holding any official position or leading a mass movement. I just realized, I think that my screen isn't being shared, so I will share these links in the video description so that you guys who are watching can follow along. Basically, as I read this, I'm seeing more history of Nader. And it starts to become a little bit clearer what he's talking about. That he's the single most effective antagonist to American business. The article's purpose is still unclear, and I'm 4 paragraphs in, and if the purpose is to tell you about Ralph Nader, it's like, why do we need to know, right? This sort of draw the reader in style works, but I don't know. I don't really like it all that well. I'd like to know what I'm getting into before pretty early on in the article. I'd like a thesis up front. Anyways, I'm going to stop the analysis there for the moment.